As a seafarer, you're away from home for long periods. Your family misses you as much as you miss them. And for some children, toys may help. Sometimes she's careless and the doll gets damaged. But toys can be mended. However, when you're careless at sea, it's a very different story. Just imagine, it's late at night, dark, cold and rainy, and the deck is wet and slippery. What's worse, you're not really looking where you're going. The last minute, you see a hatch, and trying to avoid it, you slip, then trip, resulting in a serious fall down the stairway. If only you'd been looking where you were walking. When someone slips on a banana skin, it seems quite funny, doesn't it? After all, that's what you see in the old movies, right? But what if you change the banana skin to a patch of oil next to an open hatch? A slip followed by a fall down the hatch is suddenly not so funny. In fact, it's plain stupid and avoidable. Well, we're here to talk about what really happens, including the things you may not want to think about. Like what would happen to your family if they don't get your paycheck next month? Accidents don't just hurt, they can be expensive too. Time, money, and of course, your health. This modern cargo carrier sails all around the world. Despite a busy and demanding environment, the crew works safely and efficiently, and the company has an excellent safety record. We're privileged to be able to make this training film on this working vessel. Did you know that more than 1 in 3 deaths among seafarers result from a slip, trip or fall? Things like falling overboard, down a stairway, into a hold. Most slips, trips and falls are avoidable. Companies have spent the last 20 years or so making your ship, your life, safer. After all, they bought this film for you. But a modern ship can still be a dangerous place. We as seafarers know that, right? If you don't believe it, here's an example of a fatal accident on board ship.
On a South Korean registered bulk carrier, an engineer cadet fell 7 meters through an open grating in the engine room. The grating had been removed for maintenance work and was left unattended for just a few minutes. Only a small warning sign had been placed. It was at deck level and clearly inadequate considering the risk. The opening should have been roped off or protected for the safety of everyone. The sign and open grating were obscured by a trolley which became stuck in the opening, and the cadet failed to see the sign or the danger and fell to the deck below. Despite medical intervention, the cadet died of serious head and internal injuries. A simple risk assessment by any of the crew involved could have avoided this tragic incident.
So what can be done to avoid needless slips, trips and falls? Well, that's why we have risk assessments. But that's just more paperwork, isn't it? Surely that's for the captain or senior officers to worry about. Wrong, because it's also your life at risk, not just theirs. Let's have a think about it. Risk assessment means thinking about what could go wrong and dealing with it before it becomes what went wrong. It's not just about looking, but seeing. Seeing a problem, seeing a danger, and doing something about it, rather than dealing with the painful consequences. Of course, you don't need paperwork for that. You just need your eyes and your experience. The first thing to look out for is stupid behavior. It would be stupid to mess around in busy working areas like in this cargo carrier. And of course, these guys certainly don't do it. They're professionals and they work safely. Professional, safe behavior prevents accidents happening. And then there's working under pressure. We all do it, it's part of life. You know what it's like. You've got 20 things to do and they all need finishing yesterday. So you go rushing around and before you know it, you've gone and done something stupid. Better to take the time to get the job done safely first time. Better for you, better for the rest of the crew, better for the ship. Surprisingly, one reason people feel under pressure is lack of rest. Your employer allows you rest periods, the chance to get good relaxation and sleep time so you can work at your best. Make the most of them. You'll feel better and work safer. So, if you've done your risk assessment, you'll behave professionally and safely, even under pressure. It's that simple. So risk assessment isn't complicated. It's about being aware all of the time and not just when you're working. It's what you do automatically, every day, hundreds of times. You check that the floor is where you hope it will be. A risk assessment's a bit like what you do when you start to drive a car. You see what's around you. You check the mirrors. It's just checking that what you or your workmates are about to do isn't going to hurt you or anyone else. So what actions can you take to reduce slips, trips and falls? Think first. Take time to actually see the dangers. If someone's told you to do something and you're not sure of the risk, ask. Yes, that's right. Question and instruction if you're not sure about it. And if you see something hazardous, take responsibility yourself. This is not about blame, it's about saving lives. And get help. The consequences could be less severe if you deal with it right away, even if that means getting a little help. And if the job changes or you see something dangerous that wasn't expected, stop, reassess.
A new catering rating was instructed by the chief cook to bring up some empty cartons from the provision store. Soon after the rating left the galley, the cook heard the sound of a fall in the stairwell. He found the rating at the bottom of the stairs. He suffered chest and elbow injuries and had to be sent home. All this because he didn't consider the risks of not wearing his shoes properly.
So, if that crewman had thought about what he was doing, he could have avoided that accident. He should have done a risk assessment in his head first. Okay, let's try it out. What do we have here? I'd say that's a real trip hazard, wouldn't you? An accident waiting to happen. Who left them there? Wasn't me. Who cares? Hopefully somebody does, because the next guy walking by may not see it and then crash. The risk assessment I've done in my head tells me we should move these somewhere safer. Well, look at this. How many times on your ship have you stepped over cables or hoses like this? I can't get them moved on my own, but I will take responsibility for getting them moved. But just because you see something and avoid it, it doesn't mean that the next person will. See what I mean? If you see it, sort it. Trips and falls, and so far we've only really spoken about trips and falls, but slips, often resulting from spills and slipperiness, like this oil spill here, cause almost half of fall-related injuries among seafarers. I'm going to get this cleaned up. Unless the surface has been specially treated, almost any outside area of the deck could be slippery, especially in rough weather. If there's a treated walkway, use it. An obvious trip hazard is mooring lines. Always treat them with extreme care. So what else can help prevent accidents? Oh, sorry. It's a bit basic really. but you're much safer if you can see what you are doing. Whether you're working with tools or walking on the deck, if you can see potential dangers, you could avoid them. So, don't be in the dark. Keep the lights on as needed. How many times have you raced down some steps, 2 at a time, trying to look cool? Sure-footed as a gazelle, huh? Men die every year just falling down stairways. Stay alive by following this simple procedure. Always maintain 3 points of contact when using stairways. Remember, 1 hand for yourself, 1 for the ship, and keep your hands out of your pockets. And here's something else that saves lives: a simple guardrail. If there's an open hatch or hold, there should always be a guardrail to prevent people falling in. If not, tell someone.
On a Cypriot registered bulk carrier moored on the Thames, a 3rd officer died as a result of falling into one of the ship's holds. He and the deck crew were closing the hatch covers after cleaning out the hold. He climbed onto the cover to unshackle a wire in order to close it. Nobody witnessed the fall, but the cover may have been oily and wet. The edge was poorly lit. There was no anti-skid paint on the hatch covers, and he wasn't wearing a safety harness or fall arrestor. A simple risk assessment could have prevented this tragedy.
If someone had done a quick risk assessment in their head, this accident could easily have been prevented. PPE, our protective gear. So how can it save your life? Because the last line of defense when all else fails is your PPE. So what have we got? Your hard hat, your safety goggles to protect your precious eyes, your safety gloves, your safety boots, and of course, a life preserver. Wear it if there's even the slightest risk of going overboard. You know the rules. If you wear your PPE, then you have another chance to stay alive. Okay, a couple of things you may not have thought about. We talked about safer behaviour, but here's the bigger picture. What happens to the ship and the rest of the crew if you get injured? Who does your shift? Who does your work for you? If you have an accident, it affects everyone else on board. And there's more. Most major accidents aren't caused by a single event. They are the result of a chain of minor incidents. If you and your crewmates avoid a slip, a trip, or a fall, you'll avoid the distraction of a minor incident, and so you may have avoided a major accident. In recent years, ship owners have made ships safer. Deck surfaces have been made less slippery. Guardrails and handrails have been fitted or improved. But slips, trips and falls still happen, mostly due to stupid or irresponsible behaviour. Make risk assessments a part of your daily routine, and not just something you do because you're told to. And ask, question and instruction if it doesn't feel safe. Take responsibility for safety all the time. And get help if you need it. Stop if you have to. Don't work in the dark. Maintain 3 points of contact on stairways. And wear your PPE. It's your last line of defense against accidents.